Water in the oceans. Water and its importance. All the water bodies on the Earth's surface, namely oceans, seas, lakes, rivers, together with snow and ice, are collectively called the hydrosphere. As such, the hydrosphere has an importance of its own. All these water bodies are quite necessary for the existence of life on the Earth. Of all the planets, it is only the Earth which has a hydrosphere. That is why the Earth is known as the watery planet. About 71% of the surface of the Earth is covered with water, while land areas occupy about 29% of the total area of the globe. Fresh water. Water that contains very little dissolved salts is called fresh water. Although about 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered by water, very little of it is fresh. About 97% of Earth's water is in oceans and seas. It is saline in nature and is not suitable for human consumption. The remaining 3% is fresh water. Out of this, 2% of water is in the form of ice caps and glaciers, which cannot be reached by us. Thus, only 1% of Earth's water is easily available and fit for human use. It is found as surface water in rivers and lakes, as groundwater and as water vapor in the atmosphere. A very small fraction, 0.001% of the total water on the Earth, is found in the atmosphere. Water is found in solid, liquid and gaseous forms on the Earth. Fresh water is one of the most valuable natural resources of the Earth. Distribution of fresh water is highly uneven in the world. This is mainly due to the differences in the climatic conditions. Surface water is the most common source of fresh water. It is extracted from rivers, lakes, through pipes or by drawing out canals from them. Wells and tube wells are used to extract groundwater. Saline water. Water containing a large amount of dissolved salts is called saline water. The oceans and seas have saline water. There are various types of salts dissolved in ocean water, but sodium chloride and common salt, magnesium chloride, magnesium, and calcium sulfate are the main ones. Sodium chloride alone accounts for more than 77% of the total dissolved salts. The amount of salt in the ocean water is called salinity. Salinity of the ocean, however, not the same at all places. It depends on the following factors: rate of evaporation, amount of precipitation, amount of fresh water that is added to the ocean, need of water conservation, of water harvesting. Fresh water is very precious, but it is very limited in quantity, so it must be preserved and conserved at all costs. With the rise of population, we need a large quantity of water as it is limited. But we can control the way the water is used. We should see that water is not polluted in any way. Huge amount of water used by the cities and our industries return to the rivers and oceans as wastewater, which has a high pollution. Such a thing is suicidal, which must be checked at the earliest. We must conserve each and every drop of water and should try our level best to save this precious resource. Methods of water conservation, of water harvesting. All methods of water conservation should be followed to save this precious resource. For water harvesting, various techniques and methods are suggested. The first method is to capture runoff water from rooftops. The second way is to capture runoff water from local catchment areas. The third way is to capture seasonal flood water from local streams. The fourth is to conserve water through watershed management. In simple words, the water collected should be kept clean by not allowing any polluting activities either in the catchment area of at all such places from where the water has been collected. Distribution of major water bodies. Oceans are the largest water bodies found on the surface of the earth. There are 4 major oceans. According to size, they are Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean. Pacific Ocean. It is the largest of all the oceans, covering nearly 1/3 of the Earth's surface. It separates Asia and Australia from North America. It is estimated that it covers an area of about 16,68,84,380 square kilometers, which is greater than the area of all the continents put together. It is not only the largest but also the deepest of all the oceans. Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean, about 11,022 meters deep, is the deepest place in the world. Atlantic Ocean. It is the second largest ocean of the world, covering about 1/6 of the Earth's surface. Its shape is like the letter S. It separates Europe and Africa from the North and South America. It is the busiest ocean in the world as all the important sea routes pass through the Atlantic Ocean. There are many important harbors on its coastline. Indian Ocean. It is the only ocean to be named after a country. Its shape is roughly triangular. It lies to the south of India, west of Indonesia and Australia, and east of Africa. Arctic Ocean. It surrounds the North Pole and lies within the Arctic Circle. A narrow stretch of water is called Bering Strait, connected with the Pacific Ocean. It is bounded by Russia, Scandinavia, Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. The oceans are useful to us in a number of ways. The maximum amount of evaporation takes place from the ocean waters. Evaporation results in condensation, which in turn gives us the rainfall. Thus, oceans are the prime source of humidity in the atmosphere and precipitation. Oceans have a moderating effect on the climate of the coastal regions, making them pleasant. Ocean waters are home to a great variety of marine life, which is a source of livelihood to many people. Saline waters of the ocean can be made suitable for drinking by desalination process. The ocean waters have dissolved salts, and the ocean floor has vast mineral deposits which are economically important to us. The oceans are an enormous source of energy. Tides and waves can be harnessed to generate power. Oceans serve as a means of transport. They are the main arteries of trade and commerce between different countries and continents. Kinds of movements of the ocean waters. The waters of the oceans and seas are never still. They are always moving for one reason or the other. There are different kinds of movements in them. Waves, tides, and ocean currents are the 3 chief movements of the ocean waters. Waves. Waves are produced by the pushing action of the winds. The pressure of the winds pushes the water up and down. Particles of the water may move up and down, but they do not move forward like the river water. Waves are felt only at the surface and not at great depths. They vary in size and height according to the strength of the winds. Depending on the speed of the wind and weather conditions, waves may be mild or strong. Stormy and strong waves cause much havoc, as is the case with the waves of the Bay of Bengal, which, coupled with cyclones, cause much destruction to life and property when they strike against the east coast of India. Tides. The sea water rises and falls regularly twice a day at regular intervals. The water enters, receding gradually. The regular and alternative rise and fall of the sea is called a tide. The rising of water is called the high tide, while the falling of water is known as the low tide. Tides are noticeable near the shores and not in the open seas. Tides are caused by the attraction exerted by the moon and the sun on the surface of the water. But the role of the moon in causing tides is much more significant. Although the moon is smaller than the sun, it is much nearer to the earth. As such, its force of attraction is stranger than that of the sun in attracting the surface water. Importance of tides. Tides are of great importance to man. They are very useful in trade, navigation and fishing. At the time of high tide, the depth of the water near the coasts increases and enables big ships to enter the ports. Tides are useful to us in the following ways. The rise in the water level during high tide allows big ships to enter or leave harbours safely. The ports of Kandla in Gujarat and Diamond Harbour in West Bengal depends on such tides. During high tide, water rushes up the mouths of rivers. This helps large ships to move in and out of river ports like Kolkata, London, Hamburg, Rotterdam and New York. The saline waters of the sea freeze at a lower temperature than river water does. In cold countries, the seawater rushing in during high tide prevents harbours from freezing in winters. The harbours of London is one such harbour. The water at high tide can be stored behind specially built dams and useful for hydroelectric power generation. Ocean currents. Big streams of water flowing regularly, constantly and in definite directions on the surface of subsurface of the ocean are called ocean currents. When they are produced, the water of the ocean moves from one part to another. Ocean currents are rivers in the sea. Their beds and banks consist of sea water. They are felt even at great depths of the sea. These currents are often swift and narrow, with the speed varying from 2 to 10 kilometers per hour. If the mass of water moving on the surface or subsurface of the ocean is broad, slow and shallow, it is termed as drift. Its speed varies from 1 to 3 kilometers per day. Types of ocean currents. There are two types of currents, warm currents and cold currents. The warm currents flow from low latitude or equatorial regions towards the high latitudes or poles, while the cold currents flow from high latitude or poles to low ones or equatorial regions. These phenomena cause a general circulation of ocean waters. Causes of ocean currents. The ocean currents are caused due to various factors. The prevailing winds blow in one direction. They cause the ocean water to flow in the same direction and thus produce currents. Ocean currents are also caused by the difference in temperatures of the equatorial and polar regions. The warm water of the equatorial regions expands and flows towards the poles, while the cold water of the polar regions flows towards the equator. The salinity of the ocean water not only affects its density, but also its temperature. The temperature of the saline water is higher. Thus, the amount of salinity influences the movement of the sea water. Some local currents are caused by the unequal evaporation in the two neighboring seas, which produces difference in the water level of the two seas. The rotation of the earth brings about a change in the direction of the ocean currents. They are deflected to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. The shape and direction of the land masses also change the direction of the currents. Effects of the ocean currents. Ocean currents exert influence on the climate of the coastal regions. Warm currents raise the temperature, while on the other hand, the cold currents lower the temperature. For example, the cold current of Oyashio makes the winters longer and more severe in the northern Japan, while The warm current of Kuroshio warms the climate of the southern Japan. Countries influenced by warm currents receive more rainfall because winds passing over them absorb a lot of moisture. Britain, Ireland, and Eastern USA receive such rains due to warm currents. North Atlantic current in respect of Britain and Ireland, and the Gulf Stream current in respect of USA. On the other hand, winds passing over cold currents are dry and cold and do not cause rain. That is why hot deserts are found near the coastal areas which are washed by cold currents. For example, the hot deserts of Australia lie near the coastal areas washed by the cold South Pacific current. Atacama Desert in South America was also created due to this phenomenon. On account of the influence of warm currents, the harbors in cold countries remain open all the year round, and so trade can be carried on throughout the year. For example, the harbors of Great Britain and Norway remain open all the year round on account of the warm Gulf Stream. On the other hand, the Labrador coasts remain icebound on account of the influence of the cold Labrador current. The currents influence navigation also. Ships sailing along a current pick up greater speed. They can save time and fuel also, but ships sailing against a current are slowed down. Warm currents help navigation by melting the dangerous icebergs. The best fish are found in cold and shallow waters. The cold currents carry the fish to warmer regions and promote fish trade. Dense fogs are produced where cold and warm currents meet together. Such fogs reduce visibility, so they prove very dangerous for the ships. Fog is produced Newfoundland as a result of the meeting of the cold Labrador current and the warm Gulf Stream. Waves and tides compared. The following table showing the comparison between waves and tides. Ocean currents and waves compared. The following table showing the comparison between ocean currents and waves. Warm currents and low currents compared. The following table showing the comparison between warm currents and cold currents.